Hello, I am Blue Orange 22, and as the title suggests, I am a men's rights activist, aka MRA. And as you see from the title, I'm going to be talking about some misconceptions of the men's rights movement. And I do these videos every so often because there are many misconceptions about the men's rights movement. And a lot of people have a very skewed and misinformed idea about who MRAs are and what MRAs believe. And it's kind of alarming and disappointing for me when I go into most spaces and bring up that I'm an MRA. I get very negative reactions, and I realize that the reason why people are getting negative reactions, or why I'm getting negative reactions from people, is not because of what I believe. It's what they think I believe. And I know this is true at the risk of sounding arrogant because I talk to people and they tell me what they think I believe. But when I tell people what my positions actually are, and when I present to people what MRA ideas actually are, people almost always agree with it. And it's because the men's rights movement simply wants equality. So let's address some misconceptions. First of all, the main misconception is that the men's rights movement is an anti-female movement, a misogynistic, anti-women movement, and we all just secretly hate women. This one is, to me, pretty silly when you consider how many MRAs, including famous MRAs, are women. And there's Karen Strawn, there's Erin Pizzey, there's Elizabeth Hobson, and I always hate going to the list of names because there's so many names I'm bound to forget dozens of amazing women who have been part of the men's rights movement over the decades. Cassie Jaye's Red Pill documentary, if you haven't watched it, is about the men's rights movement. And Cassie Jaye initially was an anti-MRA when she started making the documentary, and then changed her mind as she was interacting and interviewing MRAs. The second is that it's the same thing as Andrew Tate and the toxic elements of the red pill / incel / MAGTOW, if you call that a movement, which I don't. This also isn't true. There's simply no connection at all, and there are MRAs who are single and married with children, and really all points in between. Thirdly is that the men's rights movement is secretly a white male only movement, and it's only for white men, which is also rather silly to me when you consider that the men's issues and the male issues, because it's not just men, it's men and boys, that affect white men, affects men of all races all over the world. If you have a law that discriminates against men, then a white man and a black man are both discriminated against as men. And most issues, especially in the United States, black males have it even worse than white males. So if you look at education stats, incarceration stats, the prison sentencing gap, men's issues that affect white males are even worse for men of other races. So it makes no sense to say that MRAs only care about white men. That just simply isn't true. Now, one of the misconceptions that is kind of sort of not a misconception, and this is where I have to get careful because it does get a little bit muddy, is the men's rights movement anti-feminist? Because after all, feminism just wants equality, right? The problem with that, and my most recent video, which I'm going to put in the link, is an example of this, is that feminist organizations very, very often do not support equality. And they support laws or practices that discriminate against men and boys. And this is something else that I often find people have a misconception about, because they tell me that feminism is just about equality and helps men too. Therefore, if I wanted to address men's issues, I should just be a feminist. And then I show them some of the examples of what feminist groups have done in the past to discriminate against men. And they either kind of go in denial, or they say, well, that's just one or two examples, but they're almost always very surprised because they weren't expecting it. And that again tells me that people just have a misconception about what's really going on. We are not anti-feminist because we are against the idea of feminism, in that we believe in equality for men and women. We are against what feminist groups are actually doing in many cases. And if you're watching this as a feminist and you're saying, well, I don't believe in anything that discriminates against men, I very much believe you. But you need to look at what some feminist organizations and what some feminist academics and what some influential feminist figures actually say and do. Some of the actual laws that they've supported. There are dozens of examples in this very channel. And I don't want to use myself as a source, but I will say if you browse my channel by feminism or feminists, click on videos where I make a title, feminists do X, Y, and Z, I promise you in the description, I link everything. I link all of my sources, direct quotes, direct articles. I do a point to prove my case when I make claims that feminists are doing something that discriminates against men. Again, in my most recent video, which I've linked below, there are 2 examples. And there's examples all throughout this channel: feminists supporting unequal laws on domestic violence, feminists supporting unequal laws on rape, feminists supporting unequal laws on pension ages, feminists supporting unequal laws on conscription, and the list really does kind of go on. So it's not that we have this anti-women hate, and that's why we hate feminists. It's because of our experience with many feminists over the years makes us very weary to call ourselves feminists. And in fact, we're not the only people who think this way. A lot of polls, another video I did recently, shows that over 50% of British men under 40 think that feminism has gone too far. If you are one of those people, ask yourself, do you hate women? No, you just see how feminism is in fact going too far. And it's not going too far because women shouldn't have too many rights. It's going too far because now it's starting to discriminate against men, and now men and boys are not just falling behind, they're falling really far behind. And that's not equal. So anyway, please do feel free to browse through any one of my videos and challenge me. You could either make a comment or send me an email, challenge me on something. I'd very, very happily be proven wrong on this. And if you are a feminist and you'd like to debate me on YouTube, send me an email. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So thank you very much. The links are in the description below. I do recommend watching Cassie Jaye's The Red Pill, and my email is also in the description below. Thank you.